Chapter 14, Part 2. In Manhouse, it quickly got about that Finn Taverner had been snatched by the crows and taken on board the bishop, and that was it was the Carterquins who had betrayed him. The reaction of almost everyone was anger. Anger with the crows, anger with the twins. Cardinal de Silva was particularly upset. All the trouble he had taken to lead the crows astray had come to nothing. He felt he had failed his old friend Bernard, and he was going to miss Finn. "I'd better go and see what's to be done about the Arabella," he said to his second-in-command, "and all Taverner's things. The dog will go wild, I imagine. He can fend for himself." He sighed. "I'll go next week. The Indians will see that no one steals anything, and if those wretched Carter twins come again to ask about the reward, send them away with a flea in their ear. The boy hasn't been gone 3 days, nasty, money-grubbing little worms." And he turned aside and spat out the window, a thing he hadn't done since he was a young cadet and thought spitting was the thing to do. Professor Glastonbury had trouble with the exhibits he was supposed to collect in Abydos and had been late in coming home. It was therefore not till nearly a week had passed that he came back to the museum and found that his first caller was Miss Minton. Miss Minton had been very distressed when the sloth came crashing to the ground, and although they had been able to right the skeleton before they left, there had been no time to examine it. Now she knocked on the door of the lab and found the professor standing by it with a worried look. "I came to ask if there had been any damage. We never thought the crows would be so violent." "No, none of the bones are broken. The backbone's been dislodged, but I can fix that." He went out to shut both the lab door and the door of his office. Then he said, "I'm not quite clear what happened. They say that Finn's been caught and dragged back to Westwood, but surely Mayer wouldn't have given away his hiding place." "No, it wasn't like that, or only in a sense." And she told him the whole story, about the children's plan, the way it had nearly gone wrong, and the happy ending. The professor was delighted. Good. So Finn is safe, and of course I should have guessed that you were Bella. Bernard spoke of you as the only friend he had as a boy. Finn's keeping out of the way, you say?" "For the time being," replied Miss Minton, "till Clovis is safely out to sea. Then he'll sail off in the Arabella, and I'm afraid May's going to be upset. She has a great thirst for adventure." "And you? Do you have a thirst for adventure?" the professor asked. "Who doesn't?" said Miss Minton, and shrugged. Then she took out the box in which she had packed the butterfly. "I wondered if you knew what this was." Very carefully the professor lifted the layers of the cotton wool. "Good heavens, don't tell me you found a harness swallowtail." He took the box over to the window. "But you have, and are perfectly preserved." Miss Minton explained about the spider's web. "I could get you a good price for it if you wish to sell it. They are very rare. I know a collector in Manhouse who's been wanting one, or I could buy it for the museum, but you'd get a better price from him." "What sort of price?" asked Miss Minton. "In English money, about £80. Miss Minton stared at him. "That's almost half my yearly wage." "Well, that's what it's worth. More if you sent it to England. After all, Taverner lived by collecting and selling things he found, and he's not the only one." Miss Minton was silent, looking at the future. Could it be that a door had opened for her? She would never leave Mayer. But one day, was it possible that she could escape from the drudgery of teaching children like the twins? The professor, watching her, decided to strike while the iron was hot. "I have to go to lunch now," he said. "I know you don't care for foreign food, but if you wish I could give you a list of the things that are worth collecting. Some of the plant resins are always valuable, and you don't have to go after them with a net." "Did I say I didn't care for foreign food?" said Miss Minton huffily. "I don't remember saying it. In fact, I didn't say it." Up in the bungalow, the twins thought of nothing but reward. When would it come? What would they do with it? How would they stop their parents from trying to get a share? Mayer heard them still whispering about it when they went to bed. Sometimes their voices rose and they seemed to be on the edge of a quarrel, but then they made it up again because they saw themselves as standing alone against the world. "And as soon as we get it, we can start getting rid of Mayer." That was the other thing they whispered about. They had got rid of Miss Porterhouse by accusing her of stealing things, and they had got rid of Miss Chisholm by telling their mother that she had been seen in Manhouse with men. They'd have to think of something different for Mayer, but they would do it too, and once Mayer went, Miss Minton would go too, and then they would be free. And while the twins quarrelled about the reward, Mr. and Mrs. Carter quarrelled about Mayer's allowance. "I tell you," said Mr. Carter, "I have to have this month's allowance for Mayer. It's no good you hanging on to it like you did last month." "Well, you can't," replied Mrs. Carter. "The twins need new dancing shoes, and the dentist said they should have braces on their teeth. You know how expensive that is. You don't want your daughters to grow up with crooked teeth, do you?" "If all I had to worry about was my daughter's teeth, I'd be a happy man. That swine Lima has walked out on me. My own agent, and if he gangs up with Gonzales, I'm finished. Perhaps if you didn't spend our money on those ridiculous glass eyes, then you wouldn't be so hard up, said Mr. Carter. Let me tell you that my collection is worth more than anything else in this house, replied Mr. Carter. Well, why didn't you sell it then, and pay your debts? You know I only agreed to have Maya because of the money she brought. It's I who have to put up with her, not you. You hardly see her. You hardly see your own daughters. And anyway, I've ordered a new cockroach killer. They're sending it out from the army and navy stores in London, and it's expensive. Cockroach killer? Never heard anything so ridiculous. Just throw benzene over them and set them alight. Really, Clifford, no wonder you can't run a proper business. Benzene indeed. I shall have to write to Mr. Murray and ask him for more money for the girl. She's not worth keeping for what I get. She broke off because May had come into the room, carrying her dancing shoes, to say the launch was ready to go to Manhouse. May had heard the quarrel, their angry voices echoed throughout the bungalow. It was a long time since she had thought the Carters had taken her in because they wanted her, but knowing that she would still be living with these people after Finn had gone was hard to bear. 2 hours later, she was playing the piano to Mr. Holtman and she had forgotten her misery. She was getting on well, but the best part of the lesson came at the end when Mr. Holtman made her sing. She still wouldn't listen when he suggested that she had her voice trained, but she had asked him about the Indian tribes. Had their songs been collected? Could she get hold of them? I mean, the Indians that live in tribes in the forest, not the ones near town, she said. A few of them have been collected, he answered. Only a very few, and there's much work to be done there. But you would find these songs very different, and not at all easy to write down. But it could be done, she asked. Yes, he replied, with patience and a good ear. He smiled at Mare's eager face, and you have both, I think. At the dancing class, everyone knew that Finn Taverner had been caught by the crows, and the twins had betrayed his hiding place, and that he was on his way to England in the dreaded westward. Everyone was sorry, and no one would speak to the twins. Not that they noticed. Even before the news of the reward, the twins had lived in a world of their own. Sergei was not there. His father had taken him on a journey upriver, but Mademoiselle Lille had brought Olga. The Kaminsky's governess had come with red-rimmed eyes, and the news that her father had died back in France and that she was sailing home on the next boat to Europe. I am thinking, she whispered to Miss Minton as they sat and watched the children dance. Why don't you come and take my job? The Kaminskys are excellent employers. Well, you have seen. Yes, I can imagine no one better to work for, said Miss Minton, but I couldn't leave Maya. Perhaps they would have Maya also. The children are fond of her, Sergei in particular. When do you leave? Asked Miss Minton. In 2 weeks. My poor mother is quite distraught. I'll think about it, thank you, said Miss Minton, but she doubted whether Mr. Murray would give permission for Maya to go and live with an unknown family of Russians. She would say nothing to Maya. There was no point in raising her hopes.